Well, glad to have you back, and this is Business Nigeria with Tolulope Ogunjobi. Yes, we continue this conversation. It's the big day for MSMEs, small businesses, so we are staying with it on the show today. Now, the contribution of Nigerian entrepreneurs to the country's economic development cannot be overstated. MSMEs account for a significant portion of the country's GDP and are responsible for creating millions of jobs, particularly in the informal sector. These enterprises are also driving innovation and diversification with sectors such as tech, manufacturing, agribusiness, creating a surge of entrepreneurial activities. I introduced him earlier. He's the lead coach at Morba Meristem, Dr. Femi Oladele. Dr. Oladele, good afternoon. It is good to have you in the studio.
Again, good afternoon. It's good to see you.
And happy MSME Day.
I wish that I've got some presents to give to you anyway.
Oh, that would have been so nice. Yeah. Let's start with the theme before we go to some of the submission by the earlier speaker, which I saw that you actually agreeing with him with your with your response in here. But let's look at it: leveraging power, resilience of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to accelerate sustainable development and eradicate poverty in times of multiple crises. Yeah. We've been hearing about eradicating poverty, creating sustainable development for some time now. What seems to be different this time?
Okay, so basically I would digress a bit and say that I think poverty will remain with us. If we go through the Holy Book, the Bible, it says that you would always have the poor, and that was Jesus speaking. So basically we understand that there will always be class. I mean, the social class, economic classes, and all of that. So we may not be able to eliminate poverty, but I believe that we are able to reduce poverty significantly, because what people would call, I used to use this joke, that what I would say, when I say I am broke, the money in my account is different from when Dangote, for example, says it's broke. So, and the subjective,
that's true, really.
Yeah, so that would always be a significant factor in determining what it is. But for this year, I'm impressed by that, because basically we are looking at two significant out of the 17 SDGs. That's no poverty, that's goal 1, and goal 8, that's decent work. It's significant because I was having a discussion with a friend earlier today, and I said, then what is the problem? We say that there is potential. We say that there is love in that ecosystem, but we're having heartbreaks. So what it means is, global statistics says MSMEs contribute about 90%.
Yeah.
More than about 50% to GDP, about another 70% to employment. But we also see that they are dying. So if there is a lot of love in that ecosystem, what is causing the heartbreaks? What is causing the breakfast, as we call it right now? Yeah. So we begin to see that this awareness, this day, is bringing us to a point where we begin to realize more about what is going on in that ecosystem and how stakeholders can rally around and salvage the situation. So I think it's a good one for this year.
Now, Dr. Olushola talked about problem solving. Yeah. Says MSMEs need to be, because many give that example that if one person can satisfy maybe 1 million or 2 million persons, you're fine. Yeah. You're good. Yeah. If you make 15 naira each, you know what that means, just as an example. But really, do you agree that that's the way MSMEs need to operate, as problem solvers, and not think that they can just start all the way something they can start?
Okay, so one of my significant mentors used to mention that when you start a business, don't start by printing shirts, because you are actually patronizing someone who is solving a problem. So you should actually focus on solving your own problem that you have identified. And in academics, usually when you want to write your thesis, they tell you that what is that one significant problem that you want to solve by this research that you want to do. So I believe that that's the same thing for businesses. There are going to be problems. And the issue with problem is once you solve one, you open another door. So it's a revolving door. You keep opening doors for others to come behind you. Because if we say that everybody today, we solve all the problems, then nothing's
going to happen again.
So there would always be recurring problems. And I believe that MSME have the potential to keep solving those problems as they emerge.
But that argument, many say Nigerians remain resilient. We remain on top of it. Yeah. Now, when you compare a Nigerian entrepreneur to an entrepreneur outside Nigeria, maybe some other countries, that we still seem to be very dogged, and we stand up there. Do you also agree with that?
I agree totally. I started reading this book by Dr. Ola Brown, where she said in other countries...
That's, I know her, Dr. Brown. Yes. I think the doctors, I want to try to remember her.
Doctors.
Yeah?
Flying doctors.
Flying doctors, yes.
So she said that in other climes, what you bother about as a business owner is the government forces. But in Africa, you bother about the government forces and evil forces. So, so basically, you see that has given us that resilience, and I believe it totally. You see a problem today, and before you know it, tomorrow we have evolved out of that, and many times many MSMEs survive. Any MSME that has been in operation before 2019 normally should not survive COVID, but you see many of them even thriving now, although we have many also that are struggling. And so I believe that is a fact for Nigerian entrepreneurs. We are rugged.
The present administration has talked about encouraging MSMEs, creating a better environment for them. Specifically, there is a 200 billion that was even allocated for MSMEs and manufacturers. But some will say some of these problems, you don't have to throw money at it. But what do you think about funds like this, disbursements, and do they get to the right guys that really need to spend this money?
That's a tough question, because I'm currently researching about targeting models in Nigeria, especially with respect to cash transfers.
Okay.
And saying that those monies get to those who need it would need data to be able to see that. I don't have access to that data.
True, I get. But just, sometimes generally we just try to, maybe you have members, maybe you have friends that are also seeking for these fundings, and they'll tell you, at the time, there was a fund at the CBN, I can't remember the figure, I don't want to just quote any figure, but as years after, 20 or 30% of that fund was what has been accessed, and 70% was still lying fallow in the bank.
Yes, I think BOI also had that issue.
They had that issue.
And maybe Jay's Bank or so, they had the issue where there was fund. But like I say, usually when it comes to accessing fund, I don't see it as a singular problem. I see it as a multifaceted problem, a problem with orientation and information. So, for example, the 50,000 I was given recently to nano businesses,
yes,
I know someone who got it.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
At least I know this is
that's a good one.
Who got it.
That's a good one.
But also, when the date passed and I was asking some other business owners, they were like, I didn't hear about it. But I know that government was doing a lot with orientation. So it means that, and this is a call to government agencies responsible for this, when it's election time, information gets to the grassroots.
Yeah.
But when we are talking about benefits, it looks like the information slowly disseminates, so it doesn't really get to those who need it. So I believe that. But with respect to what the government has been doing, orientation is significant. Also, access, some, especially small and nano business owners, don't believe that they can get those funds. So they believe it's reserved.
So they don't even go, they don't even try.
Like, we know about it, but we cannot get it. It's not for people like us. Don't bother. And so that faith needs to also be built in the system where people believe that, yes, this is my right. I'm capable of getting this. I spoke with some people who believe that their ideas are not significant enough to deserve government attention. And so that is also an issue in that area. So there's a lot of orientation that needs to go around the ecosystem. My brother, he's an ecosystem expert, and we're discussing earlier today about what can be done to ensure that people tap all of the resources within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And Dr. Lanre mentioned some of them. You would see or you would hear about Nigerians who leave Nigeria, go outside of Nigeria to do menial jobs.
Yeah.
But in Nigeria, we believe that we shouldn't do menial jobs.
Yes.
Because family members will talk, people will talk here and there. And that's why I like people who... I have a guy who graduated with my set, and he started picking bottles in Lagos, not literally picking.
Yeah, I get.
He gathers and sells for recycling.
Yeah.
And people were like, how would you be doing that kind of a business? You went to school, a private university for that matter. So I think that there are issues around that where we have to understand that there is dignity in labor.
Yeah.
And as long as you are working and not stealing, you should be accorded that respect. If someone walks in here and tells you, oh, I'm a plumber, the way you look at him, you'll be like, oh, it's low life.
Do you get? And it's not supposed to be that way.
One of my friends mentioned recently he's supposed to relocate to,
Japa.
Yes. And he said he wants to learn how to cut his hair by himself because when he goes there, it's more expensive.
He knows how much he's going to pay.
So basically, we have to also see how to, and I think the MBT, that's the National Board for Technical Education, they're doing something in that area where you standardize skills, where you don't just look down on a mechanic, you don't look down on an organizer, because they are professionals in their rights and all of that. So I believe that when we are able to get that right, then people would be comfortable. You go to school and you graduate, you're comfortable doing those kind of things.
So there's almost need for an attitudinal change, even with us as humans. We need to see things from another perspective and understand that is a professional at his own level. I read through even what Dr. Olushola also mentioned about India, China, and America, what they're doing in regards to MSMEs. I'm so job creation. These are the guys that can create these jobs.
Yeah, over 90%.
When we have about 40 million active, and maybe even if one is employing 2 persons, so that's 80 million already. Yes. And of course, some have more than 2. Yeah. So the jobs are really coming from this end. Yes. What do you think government can do? Yes, I know that all doesn't have to be government all of the time, but they have a role to play. Yes. Now, federal and state is what I'm talking about, to really enable small businesses. Because clearly with these figures that we see, they contribute more to economic development.
Yes, so I believe that, and we have to give it to them. Smedan is doing a lot right now.
Yeah. I think Stody has been up and doing.
Yes. These guys, to the ease of doing business, BEPEC.
Yes, BEPEC.
Yes. They are doing a lot in that area also. And I believe that when we begin to see more young people in those areas, I believe that things will begin to change. They understand the terrain and they have drive. They are looking up to making a name. So, for example, you employ someone that is about 30 to 40 years. He knows that, and maybe his tenure is 5 years. Yeah. He wants to make impact so that he gets another one.
Can get another one. It can be renewed, or he gets a better appointment.
So I believe that is also a significant thing, and I think that it helped. I don't want to call the university, but there's a Nigerian university that did that. At a point, all of their strategic officers were very young. People, 29, 30, and all of that. And now they are standing tall in the Nigerian university system. So I believe that would also help Nigeria. So I would say that right now we're on the right trajectory with respect to government support. But there are other ecosystem players and factors that impact how we do this business. For example, we see what Oladele is doing with respect to taxes. My earnest prayer is that most of the significant recommendations
should be implemented to the latter.
Yes, that's my significant and earnest
very
prayer,
important,
because it's going to really support businesses to grow, especially small businesses. Also, I believe that there is something that we haven't done significantly, which is education from even secondary schools. Let people begin to have the entrepreneurial mindset. You don't have to do it, but you should have that mindset. Because when we talk about entrepreneurs, we also forget that people would support entrepreneurs. You need people to drive your ideas. So even if I am not going to be an entrepreneur, but the entrepreneurial mindset that I have would help me to become an intrapreneur within the space of an entrepreneur and create value. We hear of government officers or offices where they only go to share salaries, and when you go on other days, you don't see. It's because there's no entrepreneurial mindset. If there is entrepreneurial mindset, they know that, oh, I have to do this. I have to create value even in this small space that I am. So I believe that education is significant. For others, to date, I don't believe that finance is the real problem.
I think I'm one of those that don't believe that's just finance too.
I don't think it's the real problem.
It's part of it.
Yes,
it's part of it.
Significantly.
It is significantly.
Yeah,
but it's not the entire problem.
Yeah, like what Dr. Lanre mentioned about looking for other innovative ways. I was listening just a few hours ago. I was listening to maybe the MD of Nexim. He was talking about how to de-risk MSMEs and all of that. I believe that there are things that can be done. I just hope that we would not just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah.
Yes, today we are creating awareness, but it should not stop there. There are many actors in the ecosystem. For example, impact financing, I talked about this maybe during my last visit. There are people who have money to support causes that are dear to their heart. So, for example, you love health, you love education, you are able to provide capital in that space such that people can take advantage of it at very low cost. You are not bothered really about the interest rate. You just want people to use that money to make impact, to create impact. Mm-hmm. And so that's an area. There are different actors, like I mentioned, that we need to focus attention on and see how we can mobilize everybody to see that this gets done.
You just touched on my next question. I wanted to look at regulatory environment. You talked on Oladele's committee, of course, trying to address some of these regulatory issues, multiple taxation, and all of that are sweeping our small businesses off their feet. But let's wrap up with technological innovation and all of that, and impact on growing small businesses. How well are we doing, and what is your outlook for the entire MSME space in 2024?
Basically, yes, those economic factors significantly. Political factors, maybe not so much anymore. We have moved past that.
Yeah, we moved past that now. Economic
but
issues.
There are
now.
economic issues, inflation, FX, and all of that. They are significant.
Staring us in the eyes.
Very much. And I believe that, like I always say, it's innovation. I cannot profile the solution to your business beyond you, because you are the one that is in that business. You have probably gathered experience in that business. I can only look from an outsider point of view and say, oh, I think you should do this. I think you should do that. For example, I provide services to people to look at their accounts and just say, oh, this was not correct. You should have done it this way, and you probably would have gotten a better result. But the innovative mind is still the entrepreneur's responsibility. So I believe that would work. In the regulatory space, like I said, many government offices are doing their best now. CSC, you could get your business registered almost immediately. You don't even need any.
That's true.
There are things that are in place right now, but there are still things to be done, especially in the regulatory space, to speed up the growth of and the sustainability of MSMEs. My outlook, we're in June. And I'd mentioned that before we begin to
You have to breathe in.
before we begin to see responses, positive responses, we're looking at Q3.
Yeah.
We're almost getting to Q3.
Yeah.
So I believe that things will begin to get better. Yeah. With the CBN regulation that just changed some, should I call it hours ago? I don't know what will happen. But I believe that MSMEs would weather this storm and emerge stronger.
They've always done that.
Yes.
They've always done that. We expect nothing less from them. Dr. Femi, I must thank you. Dr. Femi Oladele is the lead coach, more by Meristem Securities Limited. Thank you so much for joining us to celebrate MSME Day 2024. Wish you all the best and many more MSME days to celebrate ahead.
Thank you so much.